Rachel Torres had always been different from other girls her age. While her classmates spent their afternoons at the mall or watching television, she found herself drawn to the training fields behind her grandmother's house in rural Texas. Her friends thought she was strange, preferring solitude over social gatherings. But Rachel felt most at peace among the open spaces and endless horizon. Her grandmother, Maria, was a mystery to most people in their small town of Millfield. The elderly woman rarely spoke about her past, deflecting questions with gentle smiles and offers of homemade tamales. What the townspeople didn't know was that Maria had been one of the first women to attempt a professional football career in the 1980s, and when that door closed, she had channeled her athletic discipline into military service, specializing in precision marksmanship during some of the most dangerous missions of her generation. When Rachel turned 16, her parents divorced in a bitter custody battle that left emotional scars on everyone involved. Her father moved across the country for a new job, while her mother struggled with depression and turned to alcohol for comfort. Unable to cope with the chaos at home, Rachel asked to live with her grandmother for the summer. What was meant to be a temporary arrangement became permanent when her mother agreed it might be better for everyone. Maria observed her granddaughter carefully during those first few weeks. Rachel was clearly hurting, carrying herself with the weight of abandonment and confusion. The teenager spent hours staring out at the training fields, her eyes holding a depth of pain that reminded Maria of young soldiers she had known. There was something else, though, a steadiness in Rachel's gaze, a natural ability to focus that caught the older woman's attention. One morning, Maria found Rachel sitting on the back porch at dawn, perfectly still, as she watched a family of deer grazing in the distance. The girl hadn't moved for nearly an hour, her breathing controlled and her attention completely absorbed. Maria recognized something familiar in that moment, the same patient concentration she had cultivated during her athletic and military years. It was then that she made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Rachel," Maria said softly, not wanting to startle the deer or break her granddaughter's concentration, "would you like to learn something that might help you find some peace?" Rachel turned to look at her grandmother, curious but guarded. She'd grown suspicious of adults making promises they couldn't keep. But something in Maria's weathered face suggested this was different. Maria disappeared into the house and returned, carrying a long wrapped bundle. She sat beside Rachel and carefully unwrapped what appeared to be a pristine rifle. Not a hunting weapon, but something far more sophisticated. Rachel's eyes widened as she took in the sleek design and precision craftsmanship of the firearm. "This was my service rifle," Maria explained, her voice carrying years of memory. "I haven't touched it in 15 years, but I think it's time." She looked directly at Rachel, her expression serious but kind. "What I'm about to teach you isn't just about shooting. It's about discipline, patience, and finding control when everything around you feels chaotic, like reading a defense on the football field but with higher stakes. Are you interested?" Rachel felt something stir inside her chest, the first spark of genuine interest she had experienced in months. Without fully understanding why, she nodded. Maria smiled and stood up, cradling the rifle with practiced ease. "Good. We start tomorrow at dawn. Wear comfortable clothes and bring water. What you're about to learn will challenge you in ways you never expected." That night, Rachel lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering what she had agreed to. She had no way of knowing that her grandmother had been both a pioneering female athlete and one of the most decorated marksmen in military history, or that the next few months would transform her from a lost teenager into someone with skills that could save lives. Maria sat in her kitchen long after Rachel had gone to bed, cleaning and inspecting her old rifle with the methodical precision of someone who had once depended on such rituals for survival. She thought about the risks of what she was planning to teach her granddaughter, but also about the potential benefits. Rachel needed something to give her purpose and confidence, and Maria had something valuable to share. The next morning would mark the beginning of a secret training regimen that would remain hidden from everyone in their small town. Maria had decided to pass on skills that had once made her legendary among her peers. Skills that combined the discipline of professional athletics with the precision of military training. But she recognized something special in Rachel, a natural aptitude that with proper guidance could become extraordinary. The alarm clock hadn't even sounded when Rachel woke at 5 o'clock in the morning. Her body somehow knew it was time, and she found herself genuinely excited for the first time in months. She dressed quickly in jeans and a comfortable sweater, grabbed a water bottle, and tiptoed downstairs to find Maria already waiting on the back porch with 2 steaming cups of coffee. "Punctuality is the first lesson," Maria said with approval, handing Rachel the warm mug. "In my line of work, being late could mean the difference between success and catastrophe." She gestured toward the fields where the first hints of dawn were painting the sky in soft pastels. "We'll start with the basics: breathing, positioning, and understanding your equipment." They walked deeper into the property than Rachel had ever ventured, following what appeared to be an old cattle trail that wound between mesquite trees. After 20 minutes, Maria stopped at a small clearing that offered a clear view across a valley to the opposite ridge. Rachel realized her grandmother had chosen this location carefully. It was completely hidden from the road and any neighboring houses. Maria unpacked her equipment with military precision, laying out everything on a canvas tarp. Besides the rifle, there were various accessories Rachel didn't recognize: a spotting scope and what looked like a detailed notebook filled with diagrams and calculations. "This isn't just about pulling a trigger," Maria explained as she assembled the rifle with practiced efficiency. "True marksmanship is part science, part art, and part mental game. Like being a quarterback, you have to read conditions, make quick calculations, and execute under pressure." The first lesson focused entirely on breathing techniques. Maria taught Rachel how to control her respiratory rhythm, how to find the natural pause between inhaling and exhaling, and how to use that moment of stillness for maximum stability. "Your heartbeat affects everything," she explained, placing her hand on Rachel's chest. "Learn to work with your body's rhythm, not against it. It's the same principle I used when I was trying to make it as a quarterback. Control what you can control." For 2 hours, they practiced breathing exercises without even touching the rifle. Rachel found the meditation-like focus surprisingly calming, as if the technique was helping to quiet the anxious thoughts that had plagued her for months. Maria watched approvingly as her granddaughter's natural patience and concentration began to emerge. "Now we'll work on positioning," Maria announced, finally allowing Rachel to hold the unloaded rifle. She demonstrated the proper prone position, showing how every point of contact with the ground served to create stability. "Your body becomes a living tripod," she explained, adjusting Rachel's elbow placement. "Everything must work together: legs, core, shoulders, arms. There's no room for tension or fighting against yourself." Rachel was surprised by how heavy the rifle felt, but also by how right it seemed in her hands. Maria had her practice getting into position repeatedly, each time making tiny adjustments until the posture became natural. "Muscle memory is everything," Maria said. "In critical situations, you won't have time to think about technique." It must be instinctive. By the end of that first session, Rachel's arms ached and her clothes were covered in dirt and grass stains, but she felt more focused than she had in years. Maria packed up their equipment with the same methodical care she'd used to set it up. "Same time tomorrow," she said simply. "And Rachel, this stays between us. What we're doing requires complete privacy and trust." As they walked back through the fields, Rachel found herself studying her grandmother with new eyes. There was something different about Maria when she handled the rifle, a quiet confidence and authority that seemed to transform her from a gentle homemaker into someone far more formidable. Rachel began to wonder what other secrets her grandmother might be hiding. That afternoon, while Maria prepared lunch, Rachel researched military sniper training online. What she discovered amazed her. The level of skill and dedication required was far beyond anything she had imagined. Snipers weren't just good shots, they were elite specialists who combined marksmanship with advanced fieldcraft, surveillance, and tactical knowledge. Maria noticed Rachel's research but didn't comment directly. Instead, she began sharing small stories during their meals, tales of patience, discipline, and the importance of mental preparation. She never explicitly mentioned her military service, but Rachel began to pick up clues about her grandmother's past through these carefully crafted anecdotes. That evening, Rachel called her mother for their weekly check-in. Her mother sounded tired, but was pleased to hear that Rachel seemed happier and more settled. "Grandma Maria is good for you," her mother said. "She has a way of bringing out the best in people." Rachel agreed, though she couldn't explain exactly how accurate that statement was becoming. Before bed, Maria knocked softly on Rachel's door. "How are you feeling about our morning sessions?" she asked. Rachel considered the question carefully before answering. "It's unlike anything I've ever experienced," she said honestly. "I feel like I'm learning something important, even though I don't fully understand what it is yet." Maria smiled and sat on the edge of the bed. "What you're learning is control over your body, your mind, and your environment. These skills have applications far beyond what we're practicing in the fields." She paused thoughtfully. "The confidence you develop will serve you in every aspect of your life, even if you never touch a rifle again after the summer." 3 weeks into their training, Rachel had progressed far beyond Maria's initial expectations. The teenager showed a natural aptitude that reminded Maria of only a handful of athletes and soldiers she had known during her career. Rachel's breathing control was already exceptional, and her ability to maintain steady positions for extended periods suggested an innate understanding of body mechanics that typically took months to develop. Maria decided it was time to introduce live ammunition, but first, she wanted Rachel to understand the profound responsibility that came with such power. They sat together on the back porch as the sun set, Maria sharing stories about the weight of making critical decisions under pressure. "Every shot must be purposeful," she explained. "The moment you become casual about this weapon is the moment you become dangerous to yourself and others." The next morning, they hiked to a different location, a remote canyon where Maria had set up a proper shooting range years earlier. Rachel was amazed to discover that her grandmother had been maintaining this hidden facility, complete with targets at various distances and a small shelter stocked with supplies. "I used to come here to keep my skills sharp," Maria admitted. "Old habits die hard." Maria loaded a single round into the rifle and demonstrated the complete shooting sequence. The shot echoed across the canyon with startling authority, and Rachel watched through the spotting scope as the bullet struck exactly where Maria had aimed, a small circle 300 yards away. "Your turn," Maria said, handing over the rifle with ceremonial gravity. Rachel's hands trembled slightly as she accepted the loaded weapon. All their practice with breathing and positioning suddenly felt more significant now that actual ammunition was involved. She settled into her prone position, working through the mental checklist Maria had drilled into her. Breathe, relax, align, focus, fire during the natural respiratory pause. The rifle's recoil surprised her, but Rachel maintained her position and watched through the scope as her shot struck just outside Maria's circle. Her grandmother nodded approvingly. "Outstanding for your first attempt," Maria said. "Many experienced shooters never achieve that level of accuracy at this distance." Over the following days, Maria gradually increased the complexity of their training. She introduced Rachel to reading wind conditions, calculating bullet drop over varying distances, and understanding how temperature and humidity affected projectile flight. What impressed Maria most was Rachel's intellectual curiosity. The teenager wanted to understand the science behind every aspect of marksmanship. "Why do you know so much about this?" Rachel asked one morning as Maria explained advanced ballistic calculations. Her grandmother paused, realizing that maintaining secrecy about her background was becoming increasingly difficult. "I had extensive training during my younger years," Maria said carefully, "much more extensive than most people realize." Rachel sensed there was more to the story, but she didn't push for details. She was beginning to understand that her grandmother revealed information when she felt ready, and forcing the issue would only slow that process. Instead, Rachel focused on absorbing everything Maria was willing to teach, treating each lesson as a precious gift. Their training routine expanded beyond marksmanship to include fieldcraft skills that Maria insisted were equally important. Rachel learned how to move silently through terrain, how to use natural camouflage effectively, and how to remain motionless for hours while observing her surroundings. These skills transformed her relationship with the Texas landscape, making her feel more connected to the land than ever before. Maria was secretly amazed by Rachel's progress. The teenager had developed the ability to consistently hit targets at distances that challenged experienced marksmen, and her tactical awareness was growing rapidly. More importantly, Rachel was displaying the emotional stability and judgment that Maria considered essential for anyone with such lethal skills. This incident sparked a deeper conversation about the ethical dimensions of their training. Maria explained her philosophy about using exceptional abilities to protect and serve others, sharing stories about missions where her marksmanship had saved innocent lives. Rachel began to understand that her grandmother had been part of something much larger and more significant than she had realized. As summer progressed, Rachel's confidence grew in ways that extended far beyond their shooting practice. She stood straighter, spoke with more authority, and approached challenges with a methodical calmness that impressed everyone who knew her. Her mother noticed the changes during their phone calls, commenting on how mature and self-assured Rachel sounded. Maria watched her granddaughter's transformation with mixed emotions. She was proud of Rachel's achievements, but also aware that the skills she was teaching carried serious responsibilities. The teenager was becoming genuinely formidable, and Maria knew that soon she would need to reveal more about her own background to properly prepare Rachel for the weight of such abilities. Late one evening, Maria made a decision that would alter the course of their relationship forever. She retrieved a locked box from her bedroom closet, a container she hadn't opened in over a decade. Inside were military commendations, classified mission reports, and photographs that documented a career most people would find hard to believe. Tomorrow, she would begin sharing the full truth about who she had been before becoming Rachel's gentle grandmother. Rachel, unaware of her grandmother's decision, fell asleep that night feeling more capable and centered than she had in years. She had no idea that the next phase of her education would reveal secrets that would reshape her understanding of both her grandmother and herself. Maria sat at her kitchen table before dawn, staring at the opened box of memories she had kept sealed for 15 years. Photographs of her in military uniform, commendation letters signed by generals, and mission reports marked with classifications that still carried weight decades later. She had been known by a different name then, Captain Maria Viper Torres, one of the most decorated female snipers in military history, and a pioneer who had fought for recognition in both professional sports and elite military units. When Rachel arrived for their morning training, she immediately noticed the change in her grandmother's demeanor. Maria seemed more serious, almost formal, as she gestured for Rachel to sit at the kitchen table instead of heading directly to the fields. "Before we continue your training," Maria began, "you need to understand exactly who has been teaching you." Rachel's eyes widened as Maria began laying out photographs and documents. The transformation was startling. The gentle grandmother she knew became someone else entirely in these images, a younger Maria in combat gear, surrounded by soldiers who looked at her with obvious respect and admiration. Citations describing missions that sounded like something from an action movie, but were clearly authentic government documents. "I was a sniper for 18 years, Maria said quietly. "Not just any sniper. I was part of an elite unit that handled the most dangerous and sensitive missions. My record included over 150 confirmed long-range eliminations, most of them protecting innocent civilians or supporting critical operations." She paused, watching Rachel's face carefully. "But before all that, I was one of the first women to seriously pursue a professional football career. When the NFL wouldn't give me a real chance, I channeled that determination into military service." She showed Rachel a photograph from her final mission, a counterterrorism operation that had saved dozens of hostages. "This was why I retired," she explained. "I realized I had given everything I could to serve my country, but I wanted to experience a different kind of life. I wanted to be someone's grandmother, to make tamales and tend a garden, to find peace after decades of war." The revelation changed everything about their training dynamic. Rachel now understood that she wasn't just learning from someone with military experience, she was being taught by a legend who had fought battles on two fronts, for recognition as a female athlete and for excellence as a warrior. Maria's methods, which had seemed thorough before, now revealed themselves as refined techniques developed through years of life and death situations. Maria began sharing real stories from her service, carefully choosing examples that illustrated important lessons without revealing classified details. "Why are you telling me this now?" Rachel asked as they prepared to head to their practice range. Maria considered the question seriously before answering. "Because your skills have progressed to the point where you need to understand the full responsibility that comes with them. You're not just learning to shoot accurately. You're developing capabilities that could one day make you capable of extraordinary things." Their training took on new intensity after Maria's revelation. Rachel found herself paying attention to details she had previously overlooked, understanding that every technique her grandmother taught had been proven under the most demanding circumstances possible. The breathing exercises weren't just about accuracy, they were about maintaining control under extreme stress. The positioning techniques weren't just about stability, they were about remaining effective while under enemy fire. Maria introduced Rachel to advanced concepts that went far beyond basic marksmanship. They practiced shooting from unconventional positions, engaging multiple targets in sequence, and making accurate shots while under time pressure. Rachel's natural abilities, combined with world-class instruction, were producing remarkable results. One morning, Maria set up a particularly challenging exercise involving targets at varying distances, some partially concealed behind obstacles. "This simulates real-world conditions," she explained. "Perfect shooting conditions rarely exist outside of practice ranges." Rachel approached the challenge methodically, taking time to analyze each shot before executing. Her performance was flawless. Every target struck precisely where intended. Maria watched with mixed emotions as Rachel completed the exercise. The teenager had achieved a level of skill that many professional soldiers never reached. That evening, Rachel researched everything she could find about military snipers, trying to understand the full scope of what her grandmother had accomplished. The information was both inspiring and sobering. She was learning from someone who had been among the very best at one of the most demanding professions in the world. Maria found Rachel reading in the living room and sat down beside her. "Are you having second thoughts about our training?" she asked gently. Rachel shook her head immediately. "No, but I'm starting to understand how serious this really is. These skills aren't just interesting hobbies. They're potentially life-changing abilities." Maria nodded approvingly. "That's exactly the right attitude. Power without understanding of responsibility is dangerous, but when used properly, these skills can protect people and make a real difference in the world." She paused thoughtfully. "The question you need to consider is what you want to do with what you're learning." Rachel had been thinking about that question more and more lately. Her original motivation had simply been finding something to focus on during a difficult time, but now she was developing abilities that opened up possibilities she had never considered. She wasn't sure where this path would lead, but she knew she wanted to continue following it. As summer began winding down, both Maria and Rachel realized their time together was producing something neither had anticipated. Rachel wasn't just learning marksmanship, she was discovering talents and interests that could shape her entire future. Maria wasn't just passing on technical skills, she was sharing a legacy that might inspire Rachel to pursue extraordinary achievements of her own. As August drew to a close, Maria realized that Rachel had progressed far beyond what she had initially planned to teach. The teenager's skills were now comparable to those of trained military specialists, and her judgment and maturity had grown to match her technical abilities. Maria faced a difficult decision about how much further to push Rachel's development, knowing that exceptional abilities carried exceptional responsibilities. One morning, Maria presented Rachel with her most complex challenge yet, a simulated hostage rescue scenario requiring multiple precision shots under strict time constraints. The setup involved targets representing both hostages and hostile forces, positioned in a way that demanded perfect accuracy to avoid collateral damage. "This is the kind of situation where there's no room for error," Maria explained. "Success means innocent people go home to their families." Rachel studied the scenario carefully, calculating angles, distances, and the sequence of shots required. Her approach was methodical and professional, incorporating everything Maria had taught her about tactical planning. When she executed the exercise, her performance was flawless. Each shot perfectly placed, completed within the time limit, with every simulated hostage protected. Maria felt a mixture of pride and concern as she watched Rachel's execution. The teenager had achieved a level of skill that qualified her for elite military units, but she was still just 17 years old with no formal training beyond what Maria had provided. That afternoon, Rachel made a decision that had been building for weeks. She approached Maria with a serious expression and said, "I want to know more about military service. I think this might be something I want to pursue professionally." Maria had been expecting this conversation, but it still caught her off guard. She had given Rachel incredible skills, and now those skills were influencing major life decisions. Maria spent the evening sharing more detailed information about military careers, focusing on the opportunities available to someone with Rachel's exceptional abilities. She explained the various paths Rachel could take, from traditional military service to specialized units that handled high-stakes operations. "But remember," Maria cautioned, "once you enter that world, it changes you permanently. You need to be certain it's what you really want." 1 week before Rachel was scheduled to return home for her senior year of high school, Maria arranged their most significant exercise yet. She had contacted a former colleague who operated a private training facility, explaining that she had a protege who needed evaluation. At the facility, Rachel met Marcus Rivera, a former Army Ranger who had worked with Maria on several joint operations. Marcus was initially skeptical about evaluating a 17-year-old civilian, but Maria's reputation commanded his respect. "If Viper says this kid has potential, then I'll give her a fair assessment," he told Maria privately. The evaluation began with basic marksmanship tests that Rachel passed effortlessly. Marcus gradually increased the difficulty, introducing movement, time pressure, and environmental challenges. Rachel's performance remained consistently excellent, earning Marcus's growing attention and respect. "Where did you find this kid?" he whispered to Maria during a break. The final test involved a complex scenario that required Rachel to demonstrate not just shooting skills, but tactical thinking, situational awareness, and decision-making under pressure. Rachel approached the challenge with calm professionalism, analyzing the situation carefully before executing a plan that impressed both instructors. After the evaluation, Marcus pulled Maria aside for a private conversation. "In 30 years of training soldiers, I've rarely seen natural ability like this," he said seriously. "She has the potential to be extraordinary, maybe even better than you were." He paused, considering his words carefully. "But she's going to need proper institutional training to reach her full potential. She's too good to waste on anything less than elite programs." Rachel's final week with Maria carried the weight of impending change. Both women knew that when Rachel returned to finish her senior year, their secret training partnership would come to an end. The question that loomed over them was what would happen next. Their last training sessions focused less on developing new skills and more on reinforcing the mental discipline and ethical framework that Maria considered essential for anyone with such capabilities. They spent hours discussing scenarios where great skill could be used for both good and ill, emphasizing the importance of always choosing the path that protected innocent people. On their last day of training, Maria presented Rachel with a gift that carried profound significance. It was a precision rifle custom-built to Rachel's specifications and engraved with a simple inscription: Precision, Purpose, Protection, MT. Rachel handled the weapon with reverence, understanding that it represented not just a tool, but a symbol of the trust Maria had placed in her. "This rifle is yours to keep," Maria said solemnly, "but it comes with conditions. You will never use it for anything other than legitimate purposes. You will continue practicing to maintain your skills, and you will always remember that your abilities are meant to serve others, not yourself." Rachel accepted the weapon and the responsibilities it represented without hesitation. 2 years later, Rachel stood at the edge of a crisis that would reveal the true value of everything Maria had taught her. Now, a college freshman studying criminal justice, she had maintained her skills through regular practice and advanced training programs Maria had arranged. What started as a typical Saturday morning jog through the campus woods would become the moment when her secret abilities saved multiple lives. The morning air was crisp as Rachel followed her usual running route through the forested hills surrounding the university. As she crested a small hill, Rachel heard something that made her freeze instantly: the unmistakable sound of gunshots echoing from the direction of the campus. Her training kicked in automatically, and she immediately assessed the situation using techniques Maria had drilled into her. The shots were coming from the main campus building approximately 800 yards away, and they were occurring in rapid succession. Sarah pulled out her phone and called emergency services while moving toward a better vantage point. "There's an active shooter on the university campus," she reported with calm precision, providing her exact location and the direction of the gunfire. From her elevated position, Rachel could see chaos unfolding on the campus below. Students were running in panic, some falling as the shooter continued firing from a third-floor window of the academic building. Through her small binoculars, equipment she always carried as a habit developed during her training, Rachel could see the muzzle flashes and identify the shooter's position with precision. Rachel had brought her rifle on this camping trip, secured in her car just a quarter-mile away. Maria had always emphasized the importance of maintaining readiness, and Rachel's weekend camping gear included the custom rifle her grandmother had given her. She sprinted back to her vehicle, retrieved the weapon and ammunition, then returned to her vantage point with military efficiency. Setting up her shooting position took less than 90 seconds. Muscle memory developed through countless hours of practice guided every movement. Rachel controlled her breathing, settled into her stance, and began the mental process Maria had taught her for high-stakes shots. The distance was challenging but well within her capabilities, and the target was clearly defined with no risk to innocent bystanders. Through her scope, Rachel could see the shooter reloading, preparing to continue the massacre. Students were still trapped in the building, unable to escape, while the gunman controlled the main exit routes. Rachel made the decision that would define the rest of her life. Drawing upon every lesson Maria had taught her about precision under pressure, she aligned her crosshairs and squeezed the trigger with perfect technique. The shot was flawless. A single bullet that traveled 800 yards and struck the shooter with surgical precision, ending the threat instantly. The aftermath was intense and complicated. Rachel's actions had saved an estimated 20 lives, according to investigators who analyzed the shooter's ammunition supply and intended targets. However, her age and civilian status raised questions about how she had acquired such exceptional skills. Maria arrived on campus within hours of the incident, her presence bringing calm to the chaotic situation. She spoke with investigators, university officials, and reporters, carefully managing the narrative to protect Rachel while acknowledging the effectiveness of the intervention. "My granddaughter did what needed to be done to protect innocent people," Maria stated simply. "That's exactly what her training was intended for." The media attention was overwhelming but ultimately positive. Rachel became a hero to many, though she struggled with the weight of having taken a life, even to save others. Maria provided crucial support during this difficult period, helping Rachel process the psychological impact of her actions while reinforcing the righteousness of her decision. University officials offered Rachel a full scholarship and access to specialized programs that would prepare her for a career in law enforcement or military service. More importantly, several elite military units began recruiting her, recognizing that her combination of skills, judgment, and proven performance under pressure was extraordinarily rare. 6 months later, Rachel made her decision about the future. She accepted an appointment to a specialized military academy that would prepare her for elite service units. Maria attended the ceremony where Rachel took her oath, seeing the completion of a journey that had begun with a troubled teenager sitting quietly on a back porch in Texas. As Rachel prepared to begin her formal military career, she carried with her not just exceptional technical skills, but the values and wisdom Maria had shared. She understood that her abilities were meant to serve others, that precision and purpose must always be guided by protection of the innocent. Maria returned to her quiet life in Texas, secure in the knowledge that her legacy would continue through Rachel's service. The skills that had once made her a legend had been passed on to someone worthy of them, ensuring that the values she held dear would protect others for years to come. Their secret training had produced something remarkable, a protector who would use perfect precision in service of imperfect but precious human life.